just me and you now, David, I think. Yes, that's true. So I'm just going to set everything in motion and post new tweets, and yeah, we'll get on with the stream. Right, we got our first viewers of the evening. First of all, hello and welcome to the polling station live stream of the midterm results. This will be hopefully an informative discussion. We'll have a bit of fun too, and we're going to take in exit polls, sort of the first impressions we get of everything that happens in the US tonight. Just to explain, if the people watching now are not particularly experts at US politics, we aren't going to get all the results tonight. And some of those results might take days. But hopefully we'll have a good amount of informative fun and also a decent idea of what exactly has happened. Now, this has been really, really tight in terms of who's going to take control of the Senate. The House is going to Republicans. I feel like I can say that. The Senate have been initially Republican in the sense that the market thought was going to go Republican. Then with Roe v. Wade, the Democrats came back into it quite strongly. And late on in the day, we'd actually seen a bit of a swing towards Republicans again. And they went off freeze on to take control of the Senate. Now, there are 4 races really that will decide everything. Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania. There are 10 that are in that competitive race, but I would be surprised if there was great difference in anything more than 4. So that's where we are. It's 45 past midnight in the UK. In America, they'll be a bit further along. We'll bring you the latest from those results and also mapping projections, etc. So yeah, do come and join us. Do get involved. On Twitter, I'm actually JOB3. You can also get at @starsports_bet. And yeah, for the next few hours, hopefully, I'll be able to tell you some things interesting about the results. We'll be able to have a good discussion. Paul Krishnamurti is going to join us in hopefully about a quarter of an hour or so. And we're now going to get into it. So whilst I'm here, do drop a question. I'm going to let the people of Twitter and Facebook know that we're streaming live. I'm going to mute myself actually because that clacking must be driving somebody spare. Right, let's have a look. You got 4 of you now. I'm going to try and see who those of you are. Nothing yet, but do make yourself known in the chat, and hopefully more of you will join over the next few hours. Right, let's have a look at some projections here. In fact, actually, I might even do some screen sharing. Right, okay, so we've got 538 here, and we'll look at some forecasts, go through a few of them. These are final forecasts for races where the polls close 7:30 p.m. Eastern, as you can see, and looking very Republican, albeit that some of these races will just be very solidly Republican, safe seat territory. Now, this will be interesting and quite useful. ABC News, which is linked to 538, will have a full results and live updates blog. And I actually just want to zero in on this, right? There are 14 Democrats up for election, 21 Republicans. So we can look at that and look at the seats gained and lost. Some of these races will have been called with just 5 projections, and we got a few here, but they're very early. And these, as you can see, are the 4 likely Democrats, toss-ups, and leading Republicans. Interesting to know, however, that again, with the likely leading Republicans as well, we still only got maximum of 40% of the voting, and the polls having closed in 60s. So a long night ahead, and also I think, a very interesting one. So that's the state of play there. These are some of the races that the 538 crew are watching. If I just cheekily take a look at myself and see who is actually contributing with a question, shall I have a look now? None yet, but I will wait some new feedback or basically new interaction. So anyway, why is tonight so big? I think it's a really important question to ask. The first thing is, in the US, you have these different houses of Congress. The Senate is the upper chamber, the House is the lower chamber. For a president to want to enact their agenda properly, they will be looking to have all three. So presidency, White House, Senate, House. In reality, America's far too polarized for that. So really, what you're looking at is basically a situation where, fingers crossed, you can have the Senate and the White House usually. We have had situations where I think Obama had all three. Some Republican presidents have had that, but American politics is very polarized now. Now, Biden currently, thanks to Kamala Harris being the vice president, has the tiebreak in the Senate. It's allowed him to do some really big things in the last year or so. And that's given him energy and motivation, and it has energized the Democratic base a bit. But however, there are still big things that need to be overcome. There are issues absolutely that need tackling. And also, and this is really important here, should the Republicans take the Senate, as polls and the markets say they will, we're currently freeze on for them to do that. We were last time we were betting. Biden would lose a huge amount of power. Not just the ability to push things through, laws, etc., but also I think the power and ability to have a Senate that isn't constantly attacking him with partisan investigations, etc., etc. They can set investigations, they can shut them down if they control the committees, etc. And all that stuff is really important. So should Biden hold on to the Senate, it will be an absolute coup. If the Republicans, are to take the Senate back, then it would gridlock the government essentially until the next general election. And that's a long, long time for Biden not to be able to do anything. And it would harm his re-election chances in a small way, in the sense that he couldn't add really very much to his electoral achievements. So that's sort of the stakes here. They're very big. They're going to have an impact on 2024. And we should actually have a look at the market there. Donald Trump is now the 2-1 favorite to be president in 2024. Ron DeSantis is now 9-2. Joe Biden is 6-1. And it's 12-1 Kamala Harris. So you're seeing there the Republicans being favored, and also the very interesting scenario of a favorite for the Republican nomination who, should he run, I think would most likely win, but who has so many legal issues about him that it's not an absolute certainty he does run. Not a certainty he doesn't get indicted, and he can't. We'll talk to Paul a bit more about this, but I think that's really interesting. And I think very much worth noting. Also, 2-1 is the shortest price I've seen on Trump in a while. Something out there, I think probably the announcements, but something also maybe to do with the fact that he's pushing aggressively against DeSantis and people are anticipating losses tonight for the Democrats. Something has spooked the market a little bit to make him as short as he is. Right, I'm going to stop that screen share. And let's see if we got any questions. None yet. We'll wait for Paul to come and join, and then we'll get to it. Also going to tweet this out on Twitter, so hopefully a few more of you will join me via there. Okay, let's have a look and see what the US networks are saying. Just start with CNN. And they are saying as follows. Apologies for the delay. Right, here we go. Here we go, finally. They say Marco Rubio will get a third term. He'll defeat Val Demings. And this is an important victory because Marco Rubio is a significant figure, but also because it sort of pushes against the idea of Florida as a purple sort of state where both sides can battle and one can come out on top. Looks to be going after more Republican. Possibly an outsider view, but definitely that state's been very, very red over the last 2 years. Polls are closing in Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee. So here's a big race, and we got an exit poll for it. It's not an exit poll in terms of projection of who will win, but an exit poll in terms of what Black and Hispanic Georgians think about Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. Raphael Warnock being Democrat, Herschel Walker being a Republican. So 9 in 10 Black voters and 6 in 10 Hispanic voters apparently supported Warnock, but he has support. He has lost percentage points. He's lost support with both routes, according to the CNN exit poll. So interesting and possibly not the best sign for him early on. Ohio voters thinking the economy is weak. That's according to another CNN poll. Thankfully, we're getting a lot of high quality data through tonight. And yeah, we've got turnout in Milwaukee, 70 to 75% of registered voters. Supposedly, that's what the city is expecting. And this is interesting. The early voting tallies in Georgia are telling CNN apparently that some voters are voting for one party's candidate in the Senate race and then choosing another in the gubernatorial. Right. Let's have a look and see if anybody has joined. We shouldn't be too far away from getting Paul Krishnamurti in here, hopefully. Oh, perfect. Thank you very much, CS1234. What's most likely, or what's more likely in my view, such a better bet, Biden to win Democrat candidacy or Trump to become next president, both 94-ish? No question Biden to be the candidate. No question at all. I think his chances of doing so are likely. I think that even if he is to lose the Senate as looks likely, we have to remember that these are compared to results of traditional campaigns, traditional, lost a trail of thought there. But basically, he is not going to, I think, suffer terribly, even if there is a bit of a red wave this evening. And I think there will be the expectation, I think, that the Democrats will lose, which makes it a bit easier to swallow. Also, Biden's done a lot this last year. I think he's proved quite a few doubters wrong. I think I have to mark myself amongst that number. And I just think if I could get 94, anything like 94 about him being Democratic nominee. But no, I think it's a great question. I would be taking Biden all day long. Okay. Let's have a look and see what else is going on with CNN. Mike DeWine, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, will win a re-election in Ohio. Don't think it's the most surprising thing in the world. J.D. Vance's campaign apparently excited. I read a really good piece on that over the weekend. I think it's so difficult, honestly. And I'll read out a few deals he had previously before we closed ours down and took them in play, really. But I'm always surprised when people go this early with the we're confident, our camp is confident thing. Think something for a president to do, and even then, I don't really think they should do it advisably in a tough election. Michigan Secretary of State Jake Reynolds says things are going smoothly with elections. Let's see later. Pennsylvania voters not hugely enamored of Biden or Trump. That is, I suspect, a common story around the country. And Warnock apparently edging Walker on good judgment. And that's an interesting one. Oh, I see John King and his magic board. Uh, if anybody is unaware, CNN's John King is amazing person, and he has this huge board. It's sort of built in. It's absolutely fantastic piece of kit, and he goes and he does great clips on politics. Well, not great clips, but great analysis. So, yeah, very interesting indeed. I'm going to see if I can show some of the results here. Bear with me for a second whilst I try and fix this tech thing. And do forgive the yawns. I'll be trying to perk myself up as much as possible over the next few hours. Right, we got this. Ooh, Kornacki cam.
Reported out of Philadelphia. So we may be in a situation here. We'll see what else lights up in Pennsylvania, but we may be in a situation where John Fetterman banks a pretty significant advantage in this running tally here. And then the story really becomes, same day vote elsewhere. Is that going to be enough for Mitt?
Yes,
a reverse of how it all played out in 2020. So let's see.
Not able to bring Steve Kornacki to you. He was also at the Breeders' Cup in full glory. I'd want. My view is going to change a little bit. Also, CS1234, if you're there still, say hi. Always appreciative of another question. Let's have a look. Right, Paul's about to join us very soon, so I will just prepare for that. It should hopefully be only a minute or two, and yeah, I'll be right back with you. I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of the ABC results map. If I'm doing this right. Right, I can see another question from CS1234. That's a very good question for Paul. I will answer first as I'm here. I think there's nothing wrong with having a bit on now and waiting to see if that drifts, and then having maybe half of your proposed stake a little bit later, because should the Republicans have the optical victory where they were to win 51 seats, but do so in a fashion that made it seem like there was a red wave, then yeah, I do think he'll drift. I mean, I do think that price will be valued. I think that price is big now. I think that price is really big now, particularly with the fact that Trump looks highly likely to run. And also, I think would lose, in my opinion, in a direct head-to-head against Biden when it comes to the question of who's best to be president, which is a large part of what some elections do come down to. So, no, I think there's a possibility that he might drift, and I think that is going to make him an even more fair value price. I think 8.2 is rather big. I think he'll run and win the nomination again. I don't think he's done enough to lose the presidency before he gets going again. And I don't think anybody from the Republican or Democratic side, I should say, is going to challenge him. I just can't see it. The rumor was always for a long time, or the sort of snooty joke, if you want to call it that, was that Kamala would run next time around, but I've seen nothing to suggest it, and her numbers are far worse than his. So yeah, I'd say Biden will run again, and I think 8.4 is fair. We'll know more about how much they might drift or not, though.
And I think what you're seeing here is some counties have made adjustments here to get it reported out much faster. So again, you now see Fetterman.
That is the voice of Steve Kornacki. You should hopefully hear. And
obviously very early. This is all.
This man is one of the
so the story is
smartest people and the world's best election analysts, and I've just lost that. But it should be back.
We're talking about House races too.
And the next polls close in about 30 minutes. So once you wait for poll, let's have a bit of the overlaid with
DC. And you can see when we looked at this earlier, the Republican had the advantage. It's now flipped around. What happened is Loudoun County, we got
results. That sounds good to me. I hope it's good to you. And that will be with you in a second.
If Wexton wins, Democrats obviously are happy, but Democrats want to see this number get much bigger with the remaining vote in the 10th district, because this was an 18-point Biden district. If Cow is able to, keep this in single digits, in mid-low single digits even, Republicans would take that as a good sign nationally for them. We've got even more of the vote in the 7th district here. This is where Abigail Spanberger, the two-term Democrats, being challenged by Yesli Vega. You could see Spanberger now, as more vote has come in, more of the early vote has been processed, is inching up here, but still is trailing in the count and continuing now with more than 50% of the vote in. This might be getting a little scary for Democrats in the 2nd district here down by Virginia Beach. Jen Kiggans, the Republican, continuing with that advantage over Elaine Luria, the Democrat. Again, there's sort of 3 tiers here. These 3 districts I'm showing you, sort of on a decent night nationally for Republicans. They expected to win the 2nd On a good night, they expected to get the 7th too. And on a fantastic night, they talked about winning something like the 10th district. So give you a sense of kind of the tiers of expectation that are set by those 3 districts. But that's where it stands in Virginia right now. And I'm just checking back. I'll land on Georgia and just see where the Senate race stands. Yeah. Yeah, just again, statewide here in Georgia, we're getting a lot of the Atlanta metro area in. You can see in these counties what's happening here. I mentioned this at the beginning. You've got mail vote, you've got early vote, and that's a lot of these counties are releasing that first. They're not all releasing all of it. What we're finding out as this comes in, I just said this is the first time this is being done like this in Georgia. Some are releasing just the mail, some are releasing just the early, some are releasing both. But you are seeing, the Democrats bank pretty big advantages, especially in these big counties immediately in the Atlanta area. But one thing to keep an eye on, if you look at the statewide numbers here, I think one thing to keep an eye on here is the gap between Warnock in the Senate race and Stacey Abrams in the governor's race. So you got Warnock running statewide right now with 53.8%. Same ballots, same number of ballots coming from the same places in the governor's race. And you see Abrams is running about 3 points behind that. Another way of looking at it is Kemp is running about 3 points ahead of that. You got about a 3-point gap between the Senate race and the governor's race in Georgia right now. But again, a lot of this is the strength right now, the Democratic advantage you're seeing. A lot of that early mail vote, especially in the Atlanta area, though we are getting a lot of rural vote in too. One county, by the way, this is one, I think this is going to be key. Actually, we might as well flag it. I'll put the Senate race up right here. And notice there's
Right. I think we've got Paul Krishnamurti with us. I think so. We have, and fingers crossed, we've got sound. Can't hear him just yet. Might be just me. Paul, say hi for us. This is terrible, is it? Have I muted him? I'll see if that works. Can't hear Paul at the moment, unfortunately. Puzzling. Because I'm sure he's doing nothing wrong. I'm sure it's the case with me too, but yeah, nothing I can hear from Paul at the moment. Whilst I attempt to fix that, I will leave you with a bit of Steve Kornacki, or let his voice boom. Where is he? Oh, we even lost the Kornacki cam. Really hope not. Paul. Actually, hold on. It might have something on my end. If anybody's watching, they can hear Paul. Do let me know. Right. Our apologies. We're going to see if Paul will have better sound. We'll admit him now. Still no. Let me see if I can free up some more bandwidth.
Hang on. Any better?
Oh,
Sorry.
no worries at all.
Modern technology for you. Getting better.
Absolutely no worries at all. Paul, how are you?
Very well. I've had a little sleep, so hopefully we should be okay now. Is my TV a problem with the noise in the background?
No, not at all. You will be hearing bits and pieces of TV through the night. You'll hear a bit of Steve Kornacki. You might even get some directly pumped into this call here, actually, the current live stream. I left the viewers with a bit of Steve Kornacki, but we might go here, there, and everywhere, see what the other US broadcasters are saying. Something from the New York Times as well, which is, I think, significant enough to pop in and share. It is that Maryland will have their first black governor, just the third black governor of any US state. And it's Wes Moore, and he's a Democrat. So Democratic win in Maryland in the gubernatorial race. Paul, give us an overview of what you're looking out for from the evening, what you're expecting. I know there's been a lot of changes, but what was your sort of end state of play?
Sorry, Will. I just get distracted by North Carolina.
No worries. What happened in North Carolina?
He's just running through it on CNN. I was just reading. It's just to see what Democrats would need to do there. I don't think it's going to be that competitive. Sorry, can you just say that again?
No, of course can. What was your? I mean, what are you expecting? What are you looking out for tonight? We've had quite a few changes in momentum with regards to midterm polling, midterm betting. What was your sort of view as the polls close this evening?
Well, my position, my main position is 50 to 52 Republican seats. Those three worked out just above even the odds I got. Be very surprised if it's outside them. I think that there is just enough scope for the Democrats to get 51, but I don't personally think they'll win all of them. And it's too early to really say on that. I mean, Georgia, Warnock looks fairly strong in Georgia. I think that's the one big takeaway early on. You have to stay on those numbers that there's going to be a runoff in Georgia, probably. Right? In which case, if the Republicans don't get 50, if they're stuck on 49 seats tonight, which is very possible, really, everything is still up to play. Everything's still to play for over the next few weeks.
So it's sort of John Ossoff Mark II situation.
Exactly that.
I mean, that would be a hell of a race because the dynamic changes massively, especially when voters there. You know, what greater reason do you need to turn out than possibly giving your party control of the Senate? So no, definitely keeping an eye out there. Now, this is a good question, and it's very much one with you in mind, I think. We got a couple more questions or a couple more comments now. JW, I'm not sure if that's Johnny Ward. Give us a wave if that's you, Johnny. There are other JWs in the world, not as special as you, of course. Republicans will take the House and the Senate. And CS1234, this is a good question, I thought. Just had a look. 8.2 Biden on exchange to become President 24. Likely to be a drifter after tonight or worth playing now? Over to you, Paul.
So Trump was talking.
Biden, sorry. He was
Biden,
Yeah. He's
So the question is, what is the mark in which this is an acceptable result for Joe Biden? I would say hold the Senate. If they hold the Senate, it can be. It suddenly looks a good result because even on the negative projections, right? People would look at most really like 25, 28 losses in the House. Well, that's 14 less than Trump in 2018. It's much more less than that. It's 33 less than by Obama into 2018, his first midterm. So that wouldn't be to lose 20 odd seats in the House wouldn't be a total disaster. It's all about the Senate because he's not going to have any kind of the House would be hard enough getting anything done against the Republican House, but if he loses the Senate as well, it'll be a nightmare. The last 2 years will be a nightmare, and I do wonder whether he will stand again. That said, as it stands, everything we know says he's running again. So from that point of view, 8 is massive. I think in the market, the one thing that's going to happen in the days ahead is this continuation of this Trump gamble.
Yeah. As
soon as a big Trump announcement is coming, you see this wall of money, incredible gamble on Betfair last week, 4.8 into 3.15 today. Just on the basis of him probably going to announce a run. Well, I don't think anybody who's been following this is surprised that Trump has announced he's running.
Yeah.
Quite amazing.
Yeah. I mean, as you said on the polling station before, it really helps with financial issues because, of course, he can take huge amounts of money and fight his legal battles. And my God, he's got a lot of legal battles. Actually, it's really worth talking about that tonight. I know we're going to look into. I know we're here for midterms, but this is something probably we should address, right? Trump's currently really strong favorite to be a Republican nominee, and he's leading the polling that would suggest that it's his to lose. What can the legal troubles do to stop him getting there? He is not home safe by any means.
I don't think there is a specific, realistic legal barrier to running that he can't overcome. Right? There are moves that states have tried out about banning him from running in this particular state, which would obviously be a massive blow to him. But I don't think that would matter, and I think no one would do it because of the precedent it would. Sorry, can we just have a little check in here with Georgia? So, okay.
Yeah.
So Warnock leads by 5.3% in Georgia, 43% in. Let's just see where Kemp was, because Kemp had gone in front, the Republicans in Georgia. So that would suggest that he's underperforming Brian Kemp by 6 points at the moment, Herschel Walker. Now, I think we're probably expecting Kemp to get about 53, 54. So, yeah, I think that looks almost certain to be a runoff from what I'm seeing.
Well, I mean, that runoff is going to be quite something. And when I say it's always one thing after another, but after all of the time we've had in the UK, and now these returns, it looks like we could well be in runoff territory again, and I'm very, very sure that would be a pretty decent betting contest too. Anything else of interest that's happened just recently? We're getting a few of the early gubernatorial. I don't know. Gubernatorial. I had a feeling it was that, and
That word, that word.
that word. So a couple of really significant first, I think, because the New York Times saying that Maura Healey, the first openly lesbian woman governor. So a night of first, you got first black governor of Maryland, first lesbian governor openly. I should imagine there'll be a few of those stories, like there are in every single election. I should also say that this is by no means the end. It might not even be the beginning of the end as far as these races go. As Paul said, there could be a runoff in Georgia, but also the counting is not going to be a super quick process, and you have to remember that these are very tight races. You know, the ones that decide Senate are very, very tight, and even though there was Republican momentum, more margin of error stuff. So don't be surprised if things do go long. And when I say long, longer than this live stream may or may not last. But yeah, plenty to be won that's up for grabs. Just a reminder, all of the House seats, 435 of them, up for grabs, 35 Senate races. We're looking at, I think, 4, but maybe possibly more that might decide about the power. And that's the state of play, all the things that you need to track. And we will go to the ABC, we'll go to the ABC map at regular intervals through the evening, and I'll let you know if anything happens. Paul.
So just back to what we're talking about what does Biden need, what's a good night.
Yeah.
So there's a betting market on Betfair. It's absolutely, to me, it's the perfect guide. It's Democrats under or over 200 seats in for the House. Now, they start out on 222. So as I say, to lose 22 seats, really historically, is not a bad measure at all. Trump was 42, Biden was 60. Yeah. So it's not a disaster. When I've been following those races just on 538 every day, just checking the ratings every day. Going in, they were favourites in 211 states, 211 races. So that's what you'd be looking at, 2, 2, 4, 2, 1, 1. Now, if that's the case, then the Betfair market's wrong, and that 200 or more is way too short odds on. I'm just watching. Actually, where's this at? Sorry, this one, 62%. There's a very big race on that front. Rhode Island. Seth Magaziner is a Democrat. Alan Fung is a Republican. The Republican is 1.6% up with 62% in. That is a really good marginal to follow. If the Democrats hold that, I'd say I'm confident they'll beat that 200 line. Very confident. I expected them to lose that one. That's one of their most vulnerable. Out of the 211, they were favored. They were heading, apparently, according to 538. That was one of the most vulnerable. New Jersey 07, that is I'll say early, that's a heavily favoured Republican win. But Democrats have started well there. So that to me is the line. Apart from that, as far as the House is concerned, that's the line, over under 200 seats. And I will let you know when any of those important states come up.
Much appreciated as ever. Yes, quite a few big moments to come tonight. Let's have a look and check in on the comments. Gonna be a bloodbath, says JW. I'm I'm not so sure about either side getting absolutely bloodbath. I think there will be a lot of spinning of this in its own way of getting a lot of flashbacks to local elections, where the perception of what a good result is very much changed by either side's media team. I think, yeah, I think it'll be reasonably tight. I don't think it'll be massive either way, so I can't see anybody. Apart from that, I mean, look.
Hey, just to say something. On
Yeah.
Betfair, the Republicans are still hot favourites in Georgia. Like 2.44 Democrats, which is interesting because at the same time, the Senate market has closed right up about 4 or 5 minutes ago for Republican majority from 2 to 5. And the only thing we've really got to go on is that. Right, this is it. So, right, okay. So at this point in time, Kemp is 3.4% up. Right?
Yeah.
Let's just see. Let's just wait for this Georgia one to come around. The race there, they were mentioning Kigans versus Luria, Virginia, 07. That's a really interesting race. That's a real like bellwether. I think that was the single most vulnerable seat the Democrats were ahead in on that list I just mentioned.
Interesting, very interesting indeed. Right. This might be getting a bit populated now. It is the ABC presidential midterm tracker. Sorry, look at me getting my elections mixed up. It's my fault. We've had about 8 of them this year. It's interesting, I think.
This is some reason for hope if you're a Democrat watching it.
Actually, one thing I do need to show everybody, if I can grab it, the upshot model from the New York Times.
Go back to the house where we are today, turn off the competitive seat. Again, the lines are different this time. So in some ways,
it's just to say something about that Georgia race. I mean, let's assume it is going to a runoff. It's very highly likely. How the dynamic really works is really interesting because on the one hand, obviously, you've got Senate control, so it becomes a big question. But at the same time, Herschel Warnock, I can't help but think that Herschel Warnock is going to be dragged up tonight by Kemp being on the ballot, by all the other races on the ballot.
Yeah.
You know, he really is a horrifically bad candidate, right? And I wonder if just the fact that this then becomes a huge national race has a deeply negative effect, and that maybe Warnock, because you would assume normally in a situation like this that Walker has to be favourite for the runoff because he would expect that Libertarian Party vote to transfer to Republicans. Whether it does or, I mean, it's going to be it's going to be really interesting. As I say, I mean, I can't see how, you know, overwhelmingly focusing on Herschel Warnock can be a good thing for the Republicans.
Yeah, I think they are suffering a bit of a, dare I say, moron premium. I don't know. I think they're suffering from the fact that a lot of their elected officials now have devotion to only one person politically. I think we all know who that is, and that can be that can be sort of really difficult to sort of separate if the brand goes really bad. So this will be interesting in terms of not necessarily a direct referendum, on Biden and Trump, but also interesting to see which of the arguments stick, and also I think to see whether the spectre of Trump is what's powering this, or whether it's a bunch of other internal or external factors with regards to the US.
Yeah, I think it would descend into a bit of a referendum on that. The problem is could end up in it being a referendum on Herschel Walker.
Yeah.
I've got to say, just looking at that, I just backed the Warnock just 30 seconds ago at 2.44. I'm looking at these numbers on CNN, and he's 8.3% behind Kemp at the moment, Herschel Walker. That's pretty substantial.
Mm.
You know, if that continues, I would say Warnock goes into the runoff favourite. He'll win, you know, it'll be more like 49, 47 to Warnock. So, and that obviously that has profound implications for the Senate itself. Just the fact that there's a very good chance the Democrats going to win there. Right, yeah, Republican majority is now 1.78 on Betfair. Was 1.4 earlier today.
Speaking of pre sort of polling closing prices, just going to run through what we had for the last markets. We were 15 to 8 for Democratic Senate control, 4 to 7 for the Republicans. Arizona, we were 8 to 11 Democrats, EU's Republicans. Georgia, 6 to 4 Republicans, Democrats 2 on. And then, if I read that, I believe that's Nevada, where the Democrats 7 to 4 and the Republicans are 2 to 5. Just going down the list a little bit more. New Hampshire, 4 to 11 Democrats, 15 to 8 Republicans. Pennsylvania, 11 to 8 Democrats, 8 to 15 Republicans. Colorado, Democrats 12 on, Republicans 6s. Florida, Democrats 9 to 1, Republicans 1 to 20 on. 1 to 20, I should say. Ohio, Republicans 16 on to take that, as you'd expect. And in Wisconsin, Republicans are 12s on. Giving you sort of maybe a flavour of what we were thinking before the World Cup and what the stoners do, what the traders do, I should say.
I think that those odds, I think that reflects pretty much how things are and who's favourite in each state. And there aren't that many competitive races. I mean, the main markets for now for trading tonight is going to be Senate control and how many seats they get, or maybe those individual races. My feeling about all of this is that, I mean, let's take Senate. I don't even consider anything other than 5 races to be competitive. I cannot see. I'd be amazed if Democrats won Wisconsin or Ohio or North Carolina. I think New Hampshire is a potential shock. That was one place where I consider Republicans winning. But apart from that, it all boils down to 4 toss-up states: Nevada, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona. I had been very, very negative about Nevada, right? Because for the Democrats, because I just thought, firstly, gas prices being higher there, much higher than elsewhere, than the average. General economic problems over the last few years in the state, and the earliest voting seemed to very much point to Republican win. But then I noticed John Ralston, the sainted John Ralston, who gets is such a fantastic record of predicting everything. He has actually said that he thinks the Democrats will hold on, Catherine Cortez-Masto. So if that one, so that could really be the one to watch. I mean, they're still voting there. The polls haven't closed in Nevada yet. that could be ultimately the one to watch, because, as I say, I think that George is going to run off. Arizona hasn't closed yet. That'll be really interesting. Thing about Arizona is Republicans are going to win all the down ballot races, probably quite easily, such as for governor. And the market just had Mark Kelly, the Democrat favourite, the incumbent. And I do think he's a very strong candidate, Mark Kelly, but I just wonder if he can get that many people to split their tickets. But there's been a little bit of money for him today, generally, I think, around. He's does go into it favourite. So yeah, they're the races. They're the sort of 5 races to follow. Oh, and obviously, of course, I didn't mention Pennsylvania. Fetterman versus Oz. Personally, I'm a Fetterman backer there at 2.35, 2.4. I think Oz is a terrible, terrible candidate. The state needs Democratic anyway. The Democrats are heavily like to win the governor, so I would have Fetterman favourite personally.
Right. Thanks very much for the analysis there. Just going to have a little bit of a round the houses update. Oh, we have a Generation Z member in Congress. I believe that might be the first ever Gen Z in Congress. Don't hold me to that. Sarah Huckabee, re-elected governor in Arkansas. I'm sure nobody's surprised at that.
Here's a big one they're just talking about now.
Oh, go on.
Yeah. So Michigan, where Gretchen Whitmer is up for re-election for governor. Not certainty. I think she will win. She is up against Tudor Dixon. I think that Whitmer, who I put up, I think, at 250 to 1 on this show a couple of years ago for the presidency or the nomination, I think she will become a very live candidate for the Democrat nomination. To have won 2 governor elections in a critical swing state like Michigan is very, very good medals to have going into any Democrat nomination. And when you consider that the top 3 in that market are Biden, who may or may not run, Harris, who has terrible approval ratings, and Newsom, who we don't know that he'd run against Harris. And in any case, there's always that question mark over how much does a Californian Democrat cut through in the rest of in the other states that matter, whereas the governor of Michigan surely does. You know, he's been very much toe to toe with MAGA as well for the last couple of years. You know, there's some terrorists have been, some would-be terrorists have been imprisoned for plotting to kidnap her in 2020 when they were laid siege to the Michigan Capitol building. So, you know, she's got a lot of pedigree for that fight.
Right. I am going to bring up some updates, 34 of them from CNN. Let's run through this. Robert Mendez Jr. to win New Jersey's 8th Congressional District. I can't imagine unexpected. Early state of the Senate and House projection maps. Lots of red, but very, very early on in the game. A couple of governors being re-elected, mostly governors being re-elected. Contribute to a change in power in the Senate, which means you would chair an investigation committee, and he's already said. Right. Bill Lee, Republican governor, will win re-election in Tennessee. And Republican Henry McMaster will win South Carolina. I imagine in line with current thinking that Republicans will take back those seats. Okay, I'm gonna leave you actually for a little bit. Where am I actually? I'll wait until Paul comes back.
I'm back. I'm back.
You're back. I might leave you, Paul, for a brief moment so I can go and get some water, whatever, with the voice of Steve Kornacki. In fact, actually.
Yeah, leave that and I would interject when necessary.
Perfect. Right. Are you hearing Steve?
No, I'm not actually. I'm hearing I can't hear anything.
Oh, strange.
Well, look, leave that. I mean, I'm just sat here watching CNN anyway.
Perfect.
On my side, so we can flip back.
No worries. Do keep your questions coming, and I shall be right back. In fact,
but again, if you're looking at home, you just have to do quickly, and you see that red, we'll come back to that in 10, 15 minutes, and we'll see if that was up, that would be a big surprise. But the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is blue at the moment. That's a Republican House Senate seat. North Carolina is blue at the moment. That's a Republican House Senate seat today. Ohio is blue at the moment. That is also a Republican House Senate seat. Now, as we move later into the night, people want to know, we've been talking to you all night long. Please wait, let's wait for more votes. Well, we're getting more votes, but we're still only at 37% of the vote. So you're still looking at disproportionately in the state of Ohio, early vote. I just was looking here a moment ago because this is Tim Ryan's House district. He's a member of the House of Representatives trying to run statewide in a very complicated red leading state. This is the House district. This is that base of the House district. It stretches out and down a little bit. Early votes in there, 33%. Running a big lead. That's what he needs to do. Obviously, these are the people who know the best. This is the Democratic base. Then you go to Cuyahoga County. Only 30% of the vote in here, 74% to 26%. That's a big deal, right? Because again, Democratic base. Cleveland and the suburbs around it. You move over here to Lake County. This will be interesting to watch, right? If this is blue at the end of the night, Tim Ryan is running very, very competitive. If this gets more Republicans to move out Lake County in the suburbs, he's ahead at the moment, but it's half of the vote. And David Kelly is going to join us in just a second because disproportionately, actually, we're still looking at more early votes than day of votes.
So right now, 37% of the vote in Ohio is in. Tim Ryan is up with 37%. And let's bring in David Kelly at the battleground down to tell us. Tell us who this 37% is and what we're waiting for.
Yeah, so you guys have to see that lead. Tim Ryan with 868,000 votes, Jamie Vance 778,000 votes. You noted, Jake, that's with 37% of the estimated vote is fully in. 82% of that vote is pre-election vote. It's early vote, absentee by mail vote, early in-person vote. Where Democrats tend to participate in bigger numbers than Republicans do. At the end of the day, we think it's only going to be 32%. 32% of the Ohio vote overall will be pre-election vote. So right now, this vote that you're looking at is overinflated early vote. Not that they're not real votes and they're counted. It's just become such a larger share than we think it will make at the end of the day. And that gives Dave Vance and his campaign hope that as more and more of that election day vote comes in, that Republican leaning vote, it's going to help potentially oversee Tim Ryan.
All right, we'll keep watching the actual vote come in. And John, can you take me down to Georgia? What are we looking at?
The easiest way to not stop Delta flight from DTA. Look, you see again, remember this was not this close earlier, right?
Yeah.
And not only was it not this close earlier, Senator Warnock was above 50%. Again, we're still at 53%. If you were with us in 2022 presidential race, early 2021, for the two Georgia runoffs, these are espresso races. These are your up late and your Public County right day as well. But they're all getting and you are seeing the margin cycle. So 49.6 to 48.7. This is being quite considerably. And again, we were talking earlier, the Democratic incumbent senator on top right there. When you look at the map, this is the state where you have a Democratic incumbent senator and a Republican incumbent governor running in the same election, which makes it interesting that
Before you do that, I want to bring David Kelly at the battleground desk. We'll talk more. 53% of the vote is in. Tell us what we're waiting.
Yeah, so we're breaking this down, Dave. Mail vote, early in person, election day vote. I just want to show you what is still uncounted. So in mail vote, 36% we're not. 50% 31.6% is still uncounted. Early in person vote, 35.6% still uncounted. We've got a much smaller advantage there. But the big walker category, 42.4% from election day voters, and 87.6% of that vote still remains to be counted. So this is going to be a close race as we walk it over the line.
All right, now, what else were you going to talk about? So a lot of that vote still to be counted, just to follow up on that point before I take it to the governor. Then you see a lot of these gray counties here as well. That is rural some countries, or very Republican countries. You still have no votes there, even counted at all. You have no votes counted at all. And it's a smaller county, so it's less than one.
Right, I'm back. I hope you can hear me. I'm sure you can. Let's have a look at any questions that might come whilst I was away. I'm sharing everything that I want to now. Stop share. Perfect. Right. Okay, the significance for America going forward, Paul and William with a red congressional majority. I'm going to presume this means.
Senator governor's races going
Oh,
on.
oh, hello.
Hello.
Right, I got a question from Kevin. I can actually ask you it. Significance for America going forward, Paul and William with a red congressional majority.
Mike Huckabee becoming the new governor of Arkansas. We should know.
Sorry, so again, significance for America going forward.
With a red congressional majority, as per Kevin Carr, who was just asked on live chat.
So first of all, it will mean that Joe Biden is going to find it very hard to get any legislation through whatsoever, right? They will block everything. So virtually everything Biden does from now of any significance will be done via executive order, right? Secondly, I'm absolutely certain that the Republican House will get to work immediately with investigating every single aspect of the Biden administration with a view to impeaching him in due course, right? I do think that will happen. If they have any kind of substantial majority, like 10-20 majority in the House, they will probably impeach Biden in the next 2 years, which he would then survive because he would win unless he was actually guilty of something. And it was bad enough to alienate the majority of Democrats, he wouldn't be impeached by the Senate. So that would be, I think it would be mainly for show purposes and for political purposes. But I think that's the kind of thing that will dominate the agenda for the next 2 years. I think it will just be ever more culture wars, basically. And, you know, the election, really, the presidential election starts, you know, tonight, really. How people respond. Trump will no doubt declare within a few days, if not tonight, you know, who say he's not going to declare in the middle of the night. steal the show. He must be really like devastated to not be centre of attention at the election night. And so once that starts, Walker has overtaken Warnock in Georgia, 49.3, 48.9.
Oof.
Long way to go. I'm not sure to what extent those big metropolitan areas have encountered yet, but
No, very, very tight there indeed. I couldn't put it any better with regards to what the potential consequences are of a red, basically congressional majority going forward. I think you see all of those things. I think also the things going forward would be that, like you say, I think we're twofold. I think number one, although to be fair, we already were fighting it, I think it really would make the next election feel like a much more tomorrow choice than previously. And I think it will, I do think she will use, I think the culture will basically will be intensified. And in fact, you've already seen that already in the midterms as well. Okay. Looks like Brian Kemp won. Lots of crime in Nevada too. Oh, interesting. CS1234 again. Republicans are 1.76% majority and 1.5 to win Georgia. Isn't the former essentially the same bet at this point? One for you, Paul.
No. I would say that the first point I would say is that the issue with the Georgia betting is, remember that any bet you have now, there's a very good chance it won't be settled tonight. It will be settled after the runoff. Right now, trying to predict. Oh, sorry. On that very race, big swing there back to Warnock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's put it back in front. Sorry, the question was Republican majority or Senate majority?
The question was, let me grab that again. The Republicans are 1.76 for a Senate majority and 1.5 in Georgia. Isn't the former essentially the same bet at this price?
No, it's not, because in addition to the uncertainty with Georgia, they could win a majority without it. If the Democrats hold Georgia but lose Nevada or Arizona, then they'd have to win Pennsylvania probably to retain the Senate control. It's 50-50 at the moment. You've also got, I'm not saying there will be an upset there, but I do think New Hampshire will be close, and it wouldn't shock me. That could be the shock of the night. If it's a really good night for the Republicans, they'll take New Hampshire. And so, yeah, the Republicans have got multiple ways to a majority.
Yeah. I think that's really worth keeping an eye on, particularly also if you're not as deep into this as we might be. There's more than one way to skin the cat here for both political parties, but no, Republicans especially. And I think it is interesting that we finally had to put to us what would happen if because sorry, I mean, what would happen if lost a train of thought there, so my apologies. I'm going to bring that back, but basically, yeah, there are really interesting scenarios, particularly if, as the markets see likely, or the markets feel is likely, I should say, Republicans do take it all back. What might happen? What they might pull down the line? In my personal thinking, with it, not just Republicans in general, in terms of their betting strategy or the betting strategy, has always been this election, this whatever should suit him or should suit them. Going forwards, it might be difficult to get this sort of enthusiasm once again, just because the next election, unless it's Georgia, will matter a little bit less until the presidential one.
So we're not take that lead again. Real confidence that they are very much still in this mix. Very interesting, David. Let's get one more.
Anything from John King? Do I hear John King?
You do, yeah. Experience, I'll turn him down a little bit.
We're always happy to have John King here.
Yeah, so as he says, I'm not sure quite where that stands. I mean, it's Georgia. Georgia looks an exciting race. Betting on Betfair's gone back out again to because the Republicans shortened then to like 1.4 when he went in front of the lock. We're back to 1.58 for Republican majority. Yeah. So just back to the calculations talking about is how many paths do they have?
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I just do not think the Democrats can hope to pull off any of these upsets in Wisconsin, Ohio, even North Carolina. And therefore, the way to look at it is they can only gain one seat. There were 50 as we start.
Yeah.
Only realistic gains is to hold all the things they already hold and then gain the open seat of Pennsylvania, right?
Mhm.
So you can restrict your calculations around those numbers. If you restrict all your calculations around, let's say that at most the Democrats will get 51, which is 49 on the Betfair. On the other hand, the Republicans could gain 4 seats. I think realistically, without any major upset, they could gain Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Arizona. I'm not saying they will. I don't fancy them to. I fancy them to gain Nevada, and I did fancy them to win Georgia, but I'm kind of. I think it's more of a. I'm on the fence. I think it's probably 50-50 race right now. But yeah, to stop. But in terms of so the Republicans could still win a majority even if they don't win Georgia.
So just having a quick look at some of the other states. Lots of big names. Well, actually, I would say, yeah, big names. Lots of big names that you probably would have heard of, even if you're not really a polling station follower, being re-elected. Marjorie Taylor Greene re-elected. Perfect amount of silence there. I love it. And Jamie Pritzker re-elected. Sarah Huckabee re-elected. This is a brilliant who's who. And a fair few more on the NPR website, which I will endeavour to dig out to people. Right. I think it's 3 or 4 races, state governorships that have been called out so far. So this is in place. The list is taking place, I should say. And it'll be interesting to see who accompanies who there. Let's have a look at some questions.
Very few signals coming through yet about the House.
Okie doke. Sorry.
Yeah, go on. Ask me.
Well, actually, just spotted the question. It was very different from America. We will touch on it when we got a chance, but make you point out the house.
No, I was just saying I was looking for some signals, but struggling to find them really. Yeah, it's a bit too early still.
Yeah. That's it's entirely fair. Okay, JW. This is a very left field one. We did discuss this a little bit on the polling station. We didn't do this for the results. But what are the odds in Brazil's election being overturned?
I don't know. I'll be completely honest, I've been so focused on America last few days that I'm not really got my eye on the ball on that. I would have thought it highly unlikely. I would have thought that it is highly unlikely that such a thing would happen when Brazil would clearly lose the support of the international community were that to happen. But I honestly am not well versed in the internal Brazilian situation, whether it could happen or not.
Okay, fair enough. Just going to 2:15. Let's get a bit of a state of play recap. We already know what we're all looking at. It's mainly the Senate we're looking at, although all of the House Representative seats are there for nothing. Right. Look. Win for Ron Mendes Jr. In North Carolina, Democrats taking a big advantage with early voting, but they expect it to be reversed fairly soon. And yeah, that's it for the little news roundup. There'll be lots more dropping. Yep. Victoria Sparks, Ukrainian GOP, has won in a landslide. Or actually, no, that was just a projection, but still, she is very, very likely to win indeed. Chris Nunu will win in Hampshire. Okay, Chris Nunu, New Hampshire. Okay, let's have a look at some of the history makers. Katie Britt from Alabama will be the first female senator there. Maxwell Frost, the first Gen Z member of, I don't know what to call it, state legislature. I'm not sure. And a Native American senator, according to CNN projections, in Oakland, which does feel like quite a moment. Let's have a look at some of the questions. No more yet. Have I missed anything?
So there's some live betting going on still. Some of these states on Betfair.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So they still have Republicans' favourite in Georgia, although that may be thinking ahead to a runoff. So that could make sense. But interestingly, Democrats have gone favourites in Pennsylvania because Fetterman has built up a big early lead at the first 15%. But really, to be honest, that looks like I'm on Fetterman. He would be my prediction. But that is a massive overreaction. The betting shouldn't have changed on what we've just seen. That 15% up there for Pennsylvania is early vote. And if memory serves, Biden won the early vote in Pennsylvania last time by 75-25, that kind of margin, maybe even more. So if anything, I saw that number of sort of 64-34 in front and thought, actually, that's not that impressive. So whether I'm not really sure that Fetterman should be favourite there. We'll see.
Well, thank you very much for the update. I'm sure there'll be lots more to come throughout that particular race. Right, so look.
Well, again, just as relevant to this, to the Senate totals, they've only just, I'm not even sure the polls have closed. If they have, they only just have. Nevada has gone into like 5-1 on for the Republicans on Betfair. Now that would mean that we're looking at 50-50 basically, unless if Republicans were to win the other 3 key seats, Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania. So it was still very, if they've won, if they really are that likely to win Nevada, then you know, they're overwhelming favourites for the Senate.
Right. Going up to 220 now, it is 220. I might go and check in with Steve Kornacki, NBC fame. Right. Can I find Kornacki? I can, but you can't hear him, which is annoying. A tricky one. I'm very sorry, by the way, to all the viewers who have waited patiently since I grown a star. Let's look. Question for you, Paul. Ron DeSantis.
Ron DeSantimonious.
Ron DeSantimonious, dare we call him it. We've not spoken a whole lot about his chances on the premiation bit.
No, we haven't spoken much about him. Look, he's polling amazingly well for a state governor at this stage of the presidential election who isn't incumbent. I mean, he's, you know, even in the polls that he's trailing Trump badly, he's still in the 30s, which is very good at this stage. I think he would tick all sorts of boxes for them. And if I were a Republican, which obviously I'm not, I would very much prefer him to Trump. I think he'll fare a lot better than Trump, who is just a completely damaged character. But he's very short, considering you have to think there's a very high chance that he doesn't even run, because as much as, you know, I can see many routes legally to Trump not being the nominee. Right? I'm not convinced anyone's going to be brave enough to actually take him on in a head-to-head. And if Trump's going to declare in the next few days, you think he's going to get a huge head start, and then Sanders has to now then decide if he wants to go to war with Trump's base for the next few months, because it will be nasty. It will be Lion Ted Cruz all over again.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and worse, probably. So I swerve at current odds. I mean, I actually laid him a week ago because my book is very anti-Trump. I've laid Trump at around sort of 7-2, 130. And I just leveled it up and laid DeSantis at 5.0, leaving all the Democrats and any other Republican on side. And then regarding that race, I think that you have one. I think you'll probably have one or two things. You'll either have Trump unimpeded in his run, and he'll just walk it, or you will see Trump brought down in 2023 by all of his legal troubles, and then in which case I don't think DeSantis would just have it. The race wouldn't be just his for the taking. I think it would be other people would come in. It would become a competitive race. You'd easily have 6 or 7 people in it.
Interesting one, that. Sometimes you want these smaller. No, apologies, going to restart again. No, well said and very interesting thoughts on that. We will be discussing, I'm sure, at some point this week, the fallout from the midterms, although don't necessarily expect it to be tomorrow, because the FA, shamelessly, I agree, Martin. So yeah, let's have a look. Any more questions? Nothing new or in the Brazil department, well, not the Brazil department, I should say, but basically the races we're really looking to watch all remains pretty much as it was on polling day. Okay, what time is it now? Nearly 2:30. Right, a few more announcements. Oh, this is actually, how have we not discussed this? Donald Trump is on the warpath on Truth Social. Okay, Donald Trump, absentee ballot situation in Detroit is really bad. Capital explanation, capital letters. You know exactly how he tweets by now. People are showing up only to vote to be sold. Sorry. I wonder what's going to happen in Detroit. Definitely worth keeping an eye on.
You see what's probably going on there. He's probably already identified Gretchen Whitmer as a potential rival, and so let's start that conspiracy theory now. Yeah, makes sense. Doing a lot of the grounding. The rallies as well will tie into that. I have no doubt that the moment the Republicans win the House, whatever, he will suddenly hit with a flurry of activity over the next week. Allows him to be a fixer as far as possible. Allows him to be sort of a fixer as well of the events agenda there, rather than just reacting to it. So we're going to have a look here at a couple more of the results that's coming through. So look, where are we with these results? We've got results from North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, seats won, Beckham, Arkansas results, Arkansas, I should say, South Carolina. Anything else on there? Oh yes, of course, you got Florida. Let's show you 538 just for a moment. Actually, I should say for a few moments. I'm not sure that is accurate. That's all I'll say. Not sure it's up. I'm not sure they're updating it yet.
Okay. All right.
I think that's the old one.
All right. Cheers. My apologies to the viewers. Didn't know I was being misled there.
Do we have one live? There is a live. I'm trying to find a live track here. Yeah, this is the one you want. NewYorkTimes.com.
Let's have a look. Where are we? Where are we? Where are we?
And then go on elections.
Yep.
Live election top races to watch. One of them. That's what was moving.
All right. Much appreciated, Paul.
Oh, hang on a minute.
Right. It's literally 2:30. We might as well talk about not just anti-post, whatever, but I don't know, pre-post. I mean, what's your book riding on really in terms of result? Is it all Georgia, or is it
a lot of cover really? As long as it's riding on the Democrats not winning any of these outlandish targets, right? If they don't get, if I'm, my position is 50, 51, 52 to the Republicans, right? That covers a lot of outcomes. I think at worst ways, at the end of the night, I'll just need to have a cover on Herschel Walker. But not Herschel Walker, on Warnock. That's at worst ways where the Democrats win all of those other races, as I think other key races. I still think no way Warnock's going to get 50% at the end. So, that's really what the bet is. It's a position set up. Likewise, in the House seats, I've backed 200 to 209 Democrat seats at 3-1. And I've backed, I've got a couple of bets actually. So where we are, let me just have a look. On the Republican seats, I've got 230 to 240 to 220 to 229.
Yeah.
Right. So in an ideal world, that they would get some Democrats that get about 205, 206. I think there's every chance of that. Looking through the list of target states, there actually aren't as many target states as you might expect. I think what is in play here is that redistricting has allowed both parties to shore up their vulnerable marginals, if you know what I mean. And so it's going to take a lot to get a truly red wave. And they're talking like to gain as many seats, to gain 42 seats like they lost 2018. That would take an amazing night. Maybe that is how it will turn out, but that would be beyond the expectations at the moment.
Thank you very much for that update and run through, Paul. Just on my end, not really much of any anti-post interest from any perspective in the midterms. I've been following them, and it's been, as usual, extremely enthralling, if not terrifying. But I left it blank a little bit this time around, and I think I'm quite happy with that, considering everything that's happened in recent weeks. Okay, gonna look for the ABC, not the ABC one again. Actually gonna look and see what Steve Kanaki's doing. You may or may not hear this. It's my intention, I guess, a bit that you do.
Vote in, but everything I've been showing you about that Senate race in New Hampshire, Maggie Hassan is hitting all the benchmarks that she would need to hit so far, at least. Pappas, the Democrat, hitting those same benchmarks, and his.
Did you hear anything?
I did, yes.
Perfect. That will give us a bit. Steve Kornacki. So take 5 minutes and get a water.
Is the area of the district that has the least amount of vote counted is Lake County. It's where Gary is. It's the biggest part and it's the most democratic part of the district. So that's an encouraging
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, mate. How you doing?
Hello, apologies about that. A little bit of a tech snafu. But I should be back now. Let's have a look quickly and see what is going on. And that is a few projections. Nothing big, nothing seismic just yet. A couple of major firsts. Again, I think as expected, according to Pulse Markets, and yeah, I think that is it at the moment. Now, obviously, Georgia is very, very tight. Oh, this is important. This is important. The first toss-up race tonight, that's, to be fair, what a Twitter follower of mine has described it as, has gone to the Democrats. Rhode Island 2nd Congressional District, gone to Seth Magaziner. So that's Rhode Island for the Democrats there. I think that's...
Sorry, I've been watching that too. Is that declared now?
I think Decision just given it to them.
Brilliant.
I'm not sure it's declared officially.
That is a guide. So if you give me a second, I'll just check a bit of that. So I would be that would make me very much against the 100. I think the Democrats will get 200. Just bear with me. I'll get my file on the House.
No worries at all.
Okay, so as it stood, right, with the list I have as how it stood according to polling models going in, the Republicans would win 224 and the Democrats would win 211. Now, Rhode Island 02 was the 5th most vulnerable of those Democrat holds. So if you worked, obviously it's not that simple, but it was one of only 5 seats, in fact, to be fair, where the percentage was less than 58%. It was 54% Democrat lean here. That's not a polling prediction. That's the betting projection, not the same thing. But that would certainly suggest that they're well on course to get 200. If the Republicans are to force the Democrats below 200, which is what I would define as a red wave, they have to take 12 more than they've got on my list as it stands. That's one gone. 3, 6, 7. Only 7 of those targets, one of which was Rhode Island, only 6 more were rated less than 60%. Another 9 less than 70%. So they only had 16 targets, and they needed 12 of them at less than 70%, and one of them's already failed. So that tells me the Democrats are going to get 200. And you can lay that at even money at the moment. That's that.
Okay, very interesting there indeed. So, I mean, it's interesting because I've just spotted a tweet from Garrett Morris, G. Elliott Morris, sorry, of The Economist, of course. The Economist has done some very good work on the midterms elections, and this is not a red tsunami, folks. It is the very short and direct tweet. I mean, to be fair, also, I think is very, very early on. You know, we are speaking now it's about nearly 3 a.m. in the UK now. And by the time morning comes, we'll have a much better idea of what's exactly happened, but still won't be anything close to done. You know, some of these races will take days, you know, county, etc. And it's all that tight. But at the moment, the first skirmishes, I think, would be okay. I think just okay for the Democrats. With the obvious caveat that it's really early, and most of the results we've had are just those big confirmations, etc. I appreciate very much that a hardy group of people have been with us for 2 hours nearly. I'm going to make a call for questions, and I'm going to make it actually a last call, mainly because I think we've covered a little bit of ground in the time I've been up and time Paul's spared, and I'm very, very sure we can answer anything in the next 10 minutes or so. It'll be free in about 10 minutes, so I'll give it a 10-minute warning for an end to this, because it's been fun, as I always find it speaking doing this, but I'm very, very sure that the hardy of you, the hardy watchers of you, need your beauty sleep just as well as I do, and we can't all look as good as Paul on so few hours. So if you've got a question or anything or any thoughts, jump in with them in the next 10 minutes. And when we're gone, there'll be lots of places you can get your midterm news from. We'll have analysis of this at some point later this week when more dust has settled. But Paul, as we approach 3 a.m. in the UK, where are we roughly now?
Well, the betting is closing right up in the Senate. It is 1.8 now to for the Republican majority, and it is 2.5 for no majority, which is Democrats to get 50 to 52 seats, and 15 on what counts as Democrat majority in that market, which is 53 seats. So really on the main market, would the Republicans win a majority or not, it's 57% yes, 43 no. As I've said before, I mean, they have got multiple routes to that. So even if they win, even if the Democrats win Georgia and Pennsylvania, there's still work to do in very hard. And I think on the House, we're not looking at a red tsunami, certainly. We're not even really looking at a red wave. I think we're looking at a Republican victory by gaining about 15 seats, 18 seats, which, you know, would be a solid result for them, but it's not by any means a disaster for Democrats. And, you know, as we said, really the defining thing of the night is going to be, will the Democrats retain the Senate? They've almost got a 50% chance according to the betting.
Right. So really all to play for and very finely balanced indeed. Let's have a look. Any we can get in touch with a question. No, none yet. To the 5 people watching, do get in touch. We've got about 5 minutes or so. Chuck Schumer's won re-election. No surprise there. He becomes the longest, I think he becomes the longest serving senator, or one of the longest serving senators. Certainly it's very significant. Yes, longest serving senator to date in New York. That is the other big piece of news recently. But it's been a big flurry of big names over the last hour and a bit of all the big governors winning their seats. Again, it seems like they're doing it pretty easily. Schumer, no different. I'm sure there'll be more of that through the evening. So yeah, 5 minutes to 3 now.
Republicans, it's quite interesting. The Republicans have gone favourites again in Georgia, clear favourites, 1.6. And yet the Republican majority price is bigger at 1.78. That seems quite weird. I would have thought it's the other way around. I'm not sure exactly what is happening in Georgia. Like on the New York Times, it had 70%. Here we go. 0.1% in it. Walker 49.1. Warnock 49.0, 76% reporting. I'm wondering as well if the last batch might be from Atlanta, which might favour Warnock a bit. I think that does look like it's heading for a runoff anyway. Very exciting race.
Indeed, yes, it's going really, really tight. I mean, to be fair, close races were expected. I mean, you only have to look at the tightness of the polls in these big contests. But even then, this really could be getting into. We could be in for a sort of night that was a bit like the presidency, in the sense that it was much closer. It was a close thing. It was I don't want to say thrilling. I really don't want to say thrilling. It feels like the wrong word to use, even though it was thrilling. And it went long. And for those in play, folks, for those who love to follow it right the way through with the markets to help, I'm pretty sure there'll be more and more moves. As you see, we've just seen some fluctuations there. So yeah, that is the key big race, I think, of the evening, it's fair to say. That looks set to run through on and on. In the last 3 minutes, what else will you be looking out for? What else do you have one eye on through this sort of first phase of the results? And obviously the biggest one, but not the be-all and end-all of it.
Well, I'm not entirely up to date with it at the exact moment in time, but what I'm trying to follow is what's happening in these key House districts, particularly with regards for that House of Majority Representative total seats market, but also just for what it tells you more generally. Now, we just said Rhode Island 02's gone Democrat. Just to mention the other places which I want to keep an eye on are Nevada 01, Pennsylvania 17, which I'd imagine we will get updates for. There will be results out there. We'll get some updates on CNN soon. Texas 15, New York 19, Pennsylvania 08, Connecticut 05. They're all in the northeast. There'll be substantial amount of counting done already. They are all states that were districts that were still in the Democrat column. They were the most vulnerable Democrat states this morning, right? And that's from a starting point of 211 on that estimate. So if they are winning those seats, then I think that they're going to definitely get more than 200 seats. And that's my line for the moment, because that, to me, that's the definition of the red wave. The Republicans need to get 236 to 230 to 220, 236 to 199 would be their target. That would equal a red wave. Anything less, I don't think does.
Right. I think that's just about it. Paul, thank you very, very much for making the time this evening.
Pleasure, as always. I will be for a good while yet.
Yes, indeed. I'll be sure to keep an eye on you and obviously fair, actually, you're proving even better than the official results. So I'll be sure to keep 1.5 finds on you, and the other quarter and a bit on Steve Kornacki of MSNBC to do his thing. Thanks to everybody who's tuned in. We'll be back with something for a polling station this week. As always, it's up in the air. We never have a set time for these. The politicians of the world have ripped that aim from us, to be frank, so I will take no criticism on that front. We may back possibly tomorrow, we'll let you know, but at the moment it's everything very, very tight and all to play for. Cheers for watching and have a wonderful midterm evening.